All right, so we got our heads here. I cleaned them up a little bit, and we are about to run a little test to make sure they're all sealing. And if they aren't, then we're probably gonna have to get these remachined. Fingers crossed I don't have to do that to either of these heads, but I think they're low mileage enough. Hopefully there won't be any leaks. Okay, so how this test is done, we grab some water here. All right, so we're gonna try this again. I don't have a spark plug, but I found this thing in my toolbox. Don't know where the heck it came from, but it fits in there perfectly. So we're just gonna use that to plug it. And let's see if it'll hold water now. Maybe. I think it will. All right, so what we do is we take our air gun. We just have one for a tire. It'll have to do, we put it in the exhaust port, roll some air in there. Looks like we don't have any leaks in that one there. Now let's do the intake side. My apologies, this is the exhaust side. Uh-oh. Looks like we got some bubbles. Yeah, no good. Okay, so two things. We are getting the springs. Second thing, I was told just to clean and lap them. And we're gonna do that, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. So, back to this. We are using this style compression tool. I like this tool because once you get it set, this one I'm not super crazy about this one. I'm not gonna lie. I got this one from Harbor Freight. The only thing I don't like about it is how short this lever is. It doesn't give you a whole lot of leverage. There's one I used where the lever came like all the way out here, so it was really easy and quick to use. This one just requires a little more sweat, but once you get it, it's no big deal. So what you do is I used the big one. I should probably go back down to the smaller option here. But anyways, it still worked. So you get this on the valve back here. You get this on the spring, and you just press it. Basically just grab this and squeeze it tight, and it'll clamp down on it. And now once you do that, you're gonna have access to pull out these. These are called your keepers. They're called your keepers for many reasons. Most important reason for you to know right now as you're doing this is to not lose these, because these are super important. You do not want to lose these at all. And I don't think it matters too much about which one goes with, but I am going to keep everything in order. That's how I'm taking it off. So I'm just going to do one at a time just to be safe. But yes, once you do that, you're good to pull it off, and that's pretty much all you got to do to get the spring out. All right, so now that we've got the spring compressor off, we can now remove our spring and our springs cap. And I'm going to keep everything together. The springs, doesn't matter, we're not keeping them. Now, here's another important tip. As you're pulling out these valves, it's super important, and when you're pulling them out, leave your thumb on this all the way down, and make sure as you pull it out, it makes a pop sound. Now this one did have some bubbles when we did it. Not the camera here, so you can see what I'm doing with my thumb as I pull this thing out. Basically, as you pull it out, you're really just leaving your thumb on here all the way down, and then when you pull it out, leave your thumb on there, it'll create some suction, and it should create a pop. So, it kind of did. It's hard to hear, but it kind of did. Okay, it's popping. It's popping. I don't know if you heard that or not, but it did, in fact, make a pop sound. So, you can see, this is the valve that had some bubbles when we were running that test. And it is very nasty, so we're going to clean these puppies up real nicely, lap them, grippers, and we are just whittling these things off. If they'll come off nicely. Yep, just like so. We've got new ones because we are going to be replacing all of these. Okay, so it is now the next day, and did a little bit of research, found some stuff out. Just because there are bubbles doesn't necessarily mean we have to get the head machined. But there is a way to fix that, and that is using some of this grinding compound and a drill. Or you can also do it by hand if you prefer to do that, but we are going to be using a drill. And if you were wondering what I'm using to clean this up, it's these Scotch pads. Pretty good. So to clean the valve, we're just putting on a drill, and we're just spinning the drill as we take the Scotch pad to clean it up, which I have to do with 2 hands. All right, so we cleaned it up as best we could. Again, this one was pretty bad, so still's got some stuff on there, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before. And you can see a little bit better of that surface. There's a lot of pits in there, so we are going to resurface that. So this is the before. So before we go sliding the valve in, we're gonna put some oil on the sleeve here, so that way as it's rotating, it's not creating any kind of scoring. And then for our first go, we're gonna use this, and then after that, we're gonna use the fine grade. As you can see, we put a little bit on there, and just to get an idea of what you're doing, you're getting your drill back here, and you're just gonna be spinning it back and forth. All right, so you can kind of see what we're doing here. Turn on medium, not a bunch of pressure. Maybe go the other way. You can hear it get smoother too. So after a couple goes, you can see it, there's still some pits. We want to get rid of those pits. It needs to look more like this, if it'll focus. No pits compared to this with pits. But it's definitely looking better. So we're just gonna keep going nice and easy, nice and slow until we notice that it looks a lot smoother. Okay, so camera's a little blurry. After going over it a couple of times, this is what it looks like. Zoom in there. Little to no pits, barely any pits if any. But yes, it looks 10 times better. We just went over it with the first compound for a little bit until we noticed it was smooth, and we briefly went over it with a fine compound, and we called it there. Even though this valve wasn't leaking and it already looks pretty great, we are still just going to briefly relap this one. We already went ahead and cleaned it, and it does look really great. Okay, so when you're putting these valves back in, number one, don't forget to replace those valve seals, because then you realize you forgot and have to take these back off. But when you're putting them back on, basically just reverse of taking them off. You put the new spring or the old spring, whatever you're doing, back in. Then you put the cap back on. Then you get your spring compressor tool, compress it like as if you're taking it off. But instead of taking the keepers out, you're putting the keepers back in, which can be a little tricky doing it by yourself, especially using one of these tools, but you'll figure it out. And then as you take it back off, once you release it and it comes back out, and then you have to do to make sure those keepers are in there, not going anywhere, just give it a little tap. Now we can repeat the test. Look at that. No bubbles. All right, we got one set of heads complete, and we just got a side-by-side comparison here with our completed head with our head we have yet to touch. So as you can see, this head is also a lot cleaner than this head was, so it probably would have been a bigger difference had I started with this one instead, but despite the point, you can see we got our new what are the PAC racing valve springs, and we have new valve seals in there, looking really sharp, really clean. Also cleaned up all the surface area compared to this one that we haven't touched yet. But yeah, and then we also come over here to the front. That's where you're gonna notice the biggest difference. So we pretty much just got all this with a Scotch pad. I don't know if we're really gonna get in detail and get a lot of really small stuff, but we may. I'm gonna do a little more research to see if that's really necessary, and if it is, I will. But yeah, so untouched and completely redone. Also just coming over to the exhaust side, got as much as the material that I could compared to this side.